Hi friends, thank you for watching. I just wanted to do my next show, and it's about where to land if you're relocating. So my name is Andreka Kokliot, and you're watching Winning Wellness, and you can find me on the internet. My local access TV show is on MCAT, and it debuts each month on the third Wednesday of the month at 5:30, and you can also find me on Facebook at my post-traumatic growth, and I have a landing page temporarily called my post-traumatic growth through Wise Stamp, and I'm in the process of building a website, and that's going to be, I think, called the Wellness Whisperer. So I'm also doing monthly networking events about health topics at the library. I've been doing it about a year, and it's in the boardroom once a month. So you can find the next one. It will be uh, um, listed. You can just check with the reference librarian, and they can tell you the latest functional forum. And again, my name is Andreka Kokliot, and yeah, look for me on Facebook, find me on the internet, on YouTube, like my page, subscribe, hit do the notifications if you want to get more information. So today's show is about relocating and how to relocate, particularly if you're a solo individual and you have limited income. And one of the things I wanted to um, talk about, so just like on the superficial level, um, you want to move somewhere where uh, uh, their housing is up to code. So if you're renting an apartment or a room, you want to find cities that actually keep uh, residences up to code, federal code, state code, and because there are places where it's almost um, like a mafia, where it's all about the landlord or the property manager making their over the top profits without having to do the basic uh, keeping a space safe. So if you're relocating, you want to make sure that the place you live is has clean air. So places with forest fires, regular forest fires, that's going to, after a few years, that's going to compromise. If you have any respiratory problems, if you have any genetic weaknesses in terms of cognitive decline, if you have any metabolic disorders, if you have any chronic infections like Lyme disease, living where there's chronic forest fires is going to reduce your oxygen levels. It's going to just hamper so much. So that's something you want to take into consideration. Also, if you're moving to a place, it's better to go where people are not smoking cigarettes, where they're not doing a lot of vaping and getting high a lot, honestly. Um, because, just smoking's toxic, and when it's uh, everybody in the apartments around you is smoking, and everybody's on the street smoking, and outside the bars smoking, even though you may be straight edge, and um, teetotaler, uh, living after a few years, living around everybody who's smoking and vaping, even your neighbors who are smoking pot, um, or people inside a building are smoking, uh, that you just get a lot of exposure. So that's something also to consider, as what's the frequency, like how common it is it that people who are well past adulthood, past their 30s, and they're still smoking. That's something to also consider. And along the lines, and it's a lot of it is that I'm talking about is about clean air. So if you're considering relocating, do people in that city, is it really popular to, like, are people really using a lot of standard cleaning products? Are they using a lot of pesticides indoors? Because, like, bed bugs are an issue, and so a lot of larger buildings are using that a lot. And pesticides are really toxic, not only for pets, not only for infants that are crawling on the floor. They're toxic for people, and especially if you have any autoimmune issues, that's an important consideration. Also, are people using a lot of scented laundry products? Are people in the places you're planning to move, is it really popular? Are people using a lot of Glade plugins in their car? Do they use fabric softener sheets in their cars also as a deodorizer? Um, are people in a lot of the public buildings, are they using those Glade automatic scent dispensers, like at the library or at the courthouse or at the university bathroom? Are they using all these highly fragranced um, sprays which disrupt your hormones, which interfere with your ability to think? There's um, occupational data safety sheets about the chemicals that are used in these fragrances, and are is that just uh, are people in the prospective city that you're considering moving to, are people up on the information? Because there are some places where it's like in the Middle Ages where they have no clue that you don't want to spray a child's shoe with Lysol, that's not healthy to, like, basically be spraying chemicals on a kid's foot. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. Like, so you want to move somewhere where people are kind of aware that chemicals are powerful medicine, and that where you want to move where people are aware that you've got to just have some common sense about chemical use. And back to rentals being up to code, you want to make sure that situations like if you're considering relocating, make sure that there's not a gas uh, fired water heater in your bedroom or in your living room. That Because according to federal code, a gas fired water heater needs to be in a closet or in a basement. It's not supposed to be in your living area. And if you have any autoimmune issues, while maybe a lot of people can handle a gas water heater in their bedroom, maybe they'll just think that they're just a little under the weather or something like that. It's been my experience that the gas water heater triggers a Lyme disease flare that lasts for months. I don't know, it's probably been 8 months now. Uh, and I'm still trying to find out about getting a hyperbaric oxygen chamber um, treatment, because carbon monoxide depletes your oxygen, and hyperbaric oxygen gives you oxygen. And in May, there were two families, entire families, that died from the carbon monoxide poisoning of an improperly installed gas water heater in their house. And so something to consider if you do move somewhere and you're just like super tired, your face gets red, your face becomes inflamed, you've got headaches, inexplicable headaches, and if you're right there next to the gas water heater and you notice that the headaches start when you hear the rumbling of the gas water heater, there may be improperly installed pipes to the gas water heater. For instance, in a place that I lived before this place that I have, um, There was a gas water heater in the main area. There was no separate bedroom, and there were several people living above, children that jumped a lot, and so you would hear the metal pipes of the water heater, of the gas water heater rattle. And so if you're hearing something rattle, that means that some gas could escape because there wasn't a membrane in between the parts of the piping. So I suspect that's how I got carbon monoxide poisoning. And when I called the gas company about this, they within 15 minutes they sent a fire truck, which then evacuated me. Um, and uh, but the unfortunate thing is that when the um, gas technician came to check the water heater, it hadn't been running, so he didn't get any high readings. So if you should call a gas company about a potential leak, you actually want to have the gas water heater running for a while so that there is an exposure. And of course, trying to do this all while you're suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning is incredibly difficult. And um, you know, but anyways, that's I'm just telling you what I have been learning, having had firsthand experience and having no help about it myself. So you want to make sure that like where you live, that indoor smoking is that there's consequences, that people are not allowed to do indoor smoking or smoking right outside your door. And you want to make sure that when you're moving to a location, that a dryer vent from a laundry room is not right under your door, not right under your window, I mean. So if you're moving to a place that has a long winter, you want to make sure that you have windows that open and that the windows are reasonably clean and that they don't have some strange staining from laundry products, like in an indicator of a problematic window or a problematic situation is if your window has like a strange plasticky rainbow sheen on it. That seems to be there's something that's put in certain laundry products that's just I don't know if you notice that sometimes it takes like several times to wash a scent out from a laundry from some conventional soaps. So and so yeah, make sure that the vent from your building's laundry room is not going straight to your window. And also make sure that when you turn on, hopefully your apartment will have like a vent, a fan like in the bathroom. You want to make sure that there is some suction because some vents have never been serviced, and so they're so clogged with dust that they're just using power, and it's just completely dusty. Also, make sure that the utility meters are not right on the other side of your bedroom. There's something what's called a smart meter. It's like a Wi-Fi emitter that's by utility companies. So like electrical companies will have what's called a smart meter. Water companies are doing this as well, where it's a Wi-Fi meter, and it's basically a Wi-Fi antenna or like a cell phone tower. So there's these electrical meters that are like a cell phone tower, and so you just don't want to be living next to a bank or even next to one of these cell phone tower meters. So it looks like just a utility meter, but it'll have like a digital readout as opposed to just the, looking like a clock where it's just like levers, hands moving. So basically, if you move next to something that is a smart meter, whether it's a smart electric meter or a smart water meter, that's like living next to a cell phone tower. And for those who have done research about being around high frequency devices, that it's problematic. Um, You want to avoid living like with the bedroom or even your apartment right next to the smart meter. And of course, it goes without saying you don't want to live right next to a cell phone tower. Um, Also, mold is a big thing, and there's a lot of flooding that goes on, and there's a lot of flooding that has gone on in older buildings. I suspect that a lot of buildings that we think are historic are actually a lot older um, houses. I think they're a lot older than we suspect, and therefore there could be a lot more mold from previous flooding that may be part of why so many people are so sick, despite making all these major changes, doing healthy things. Um, and yeah, so just make sure that when you're looking at a new place, you're looking at the edges of things. You're looking at the edges of like the baseboard heaters or shelving units. You want to just make sure that there's not any black mold going on. Also, if you walk into a prospective place and you're hit with a musty smell, or the particular room you're looking at has a musty smell, and you're going to find this in houses or buildings that's on the top roof. Um, I know you're probably desperately trying to find a place to live that's within your price range. Yeah, I would say moving into a moldy place is just it's a really bad thing. It's just like people have had to leave every possession that they own because there's mold filaments that just get into everything, even though it doesn't even seem apparent. So, um, so those are factors in um, trying to find out if the city that you're considering moving to or the state you're considering moving to is possibly good for you, especially if you're over 40, if you're single, solo, and you have a budget that you're working with. Something else I would also look at too is what's the mortality rate, the general mortality rate, the suicide rate. For instance, where I'm living in Montana, apparently the city, Missoula, has the highest suicide rate in the entire nation. And it could be some weird statistical thing, but if you look at the mortality rate, also, I believe for disabled people, it's also quite high. It's something like 900 people a year or something like that. And if you look at places like San Francisco, it's more like 600, and um, and San Francisco has more people, so that is pretty significant. I would also look at, if you're considering where to live, is how people drive. Whether you're a driver or particularly if you're a pedestrian. Um, where I'm living in Montana, it's the 4 years in a row. It's the worst place. It's considered to have the worst drivers in the world, and I would say that as a law-abiding pedestrian, I would say that I trust Montanans with their guns because people are um, a lot of people drink here, and I've never seen anything reckless about guns, but pretty much every week I am like fending for my life, trying to cross a street, trying to even cross a driveway. People are just driving blind here, and statistics show Montanans just have a lot to be desired as drivers. And I would say I trust them with guns here in Montana, but I think that maybe 3/4 of the population here would not be allowed to drive the way they do. Like they would not be allowed. Their licenses would be suspended if they were in someplace like California or Portland, Oregon. However, there is something to be said about how strange the engineering of the city of Missoula is, but still, there's just something, um, some strange thing. Like I met somebody who was from here, who said that they had been a driver for a utility uh, company, and they did not know until they were stopped by the police. They did not know pedestrians had the right of way in, on the street, on the crosswalk. And so I think that's there's something to be said about that, um, and maybe there's just a whole historic thing that makes certain states the way they are, or certain cities the way they are. And so it seems to me, and I don't know if it's because we're at the millennium, it's 2019, and all the maybe all the traumatic news that we're always exposed to, it's become clear to me that not only is life cheap, but it's not even sacred. And I say this about the elderly, disabled people, people who are incarcerated, people on a limited income, and of course the unborn, all the people who are at a disadvantage and they don't really have a whole lot of say. Um, like it seems like it's not even considered sacred. Like it's yeah, talking to people, at least where I'm at right now, it seems like if somebody is not strong enough to endure all of what I've described, then they really should exit. And that just doesn't make sense to me. But I do think that also it's important that um, you make sure that you're making all your efforts to make it clear how you want things taken care of for yourself. Like I do think it's important for us to do our own life planning. Make sure you have a will, an advanced directive, and um, there are what's called medical directives, and then there's a mental health directive as well. And there's something that I have read about where um, when people are in car accidents or whatever, generally, unless like you think like when you have on your driver's license that you're an organ donor, you think that, oh, they're gonna know I'm an organ donor. Um, Unless you specify otherwise, automatically you are an organ donor. And I used to be into that and think that was a really nice gesture until I started learning that when people don't have sufficient vital signs, maybe they do a twitch or something like that, they're they're allowed, their end is can be hastened. And I can't say this is done all the time, but um, when there's thousands of dollars to be made on organ transplant, whether it's an eyeball or a liver or a pancreas or a kidney or whatever, and then there's somebody who's like, seems like they're brain dead or whatever, what's the hospital going to do? The hospital is not going to lose this opportunity of, harvesting, um, 6 different organs or whatever. I'm sorry to be so blatant, but anyways, uh, I just think it's important to be aware of. And so there's something called the Life Guardian Foundation, and it's where you have a formal little card that you fill out saying that you want to have all of your parts kept intact. And so you basically say you want to refrain from anybody hastening your death, shortening your life, doing an apnea test, because apparently they use an apnea test to see, oh well, they're dead. Um, and you just have them refrain from doing any incisions, taking any body parts out. And so that's from the lifeguardianfoundation.org. So just keep those things in mind if you're planning to relocate. And let's say you're part of a couple and you're planning to relocate somewhere where, let's say, it's really beautiful, but and it's a little, maybe a little backward, but as you're getting older, especially if you're heading more towards 50 or 60, I would recommend staying in a more cosmopolitan city rather than going to somewhere more what I would call provincial or um, kind of clannish. Just like, for instance, Montana is just the most beautiful little state, or not a little state, but I've got to say that it is really insular. It's very cliquey, and if you're older and you've got health issues, and let's say you're part of a troubled couple, and especially if you're the female, but even if you're the male, like I would recommend being in a major city. Uh, because even though you may think a small town people are closer, there's just something about certain places where um, when it's there's a lot of a generational pride. It's very hard to kind of just get established and be accepted, and there's just like this fundamental soul rejection that seems to occur. So I would just say it's safer on a like psychic level to be in a larger city, like San Francisco or Portland or Chicago, even though those places are harrowing, and there's horrible things in those major cities that you don't have at all here, but um, it's just hard to explain. And it seems like I would also recommend try to avoid living where there's just two major sources of income for employment. For instance, here it's the city, or it's the university, and it's the federal government um, uh, managing a lot of disabled people. So, you're either a care provider, a social worker, or a member of the disabled population, or you're a student and a professor. And so in my opinion, I think that kind of dynamic is very dysfunctional. It also affects the rental situation, because if there's a lot of students coming and going, landlords don't have to take care of anything, and and so they get away with a lot. And landlords are not giving away rooms. I mean, but rentals, just renting a room is like $600 for a place that's not necessarily maintained up to code. So, and I mean, to get into the finer details, last year, it's my understanding that property values have tripled. Uh, so, a room can go for $600 now. And so landlords, now that their property values have tripled, what does that mean for rentals here? So the landlord isn't going to take that tripling of their property values. It's going to trickle down to the renter. So does that mean that now a room in San Francisco is going to be like $1,500 just for a room? Not even necessarily for an apartment. So those are things I would say if you're planning to relocate. I think a major city is better, but also just look into, like, if you're, specific places. Those are the details that I would make sure about. Like, you don't have a dryer vent going straight to your window. You don't have a gas water heater right in your bedroom, and so forth. So thank you so much for watching, and make sure to pray, and I hope you um, are in touch with our Lord Jesus Christ. And find me on Facebook at My Post Traumatic Growth. You'll see my new website be coming up soon under the Wellness Whisperer, I believe, is what I'm going to call it. And you can also watch for my next show on the third Wednesday of next month in October, and it's debuts at 5:30. And also, I will be having a functional forum in October as well. So make sure to be in touch with your Bible, and I would avoid any confusing rituals and holidays that occur in October. As I know there's a lot of pressure, but those are I would advise against it. So thank you so much for watching, and God bless.